The only program we know of that's been on the air in Houston longer than the eyes of Texas is Houston Wrestling. And the man behind that program is a gentle giant named Paul Boesch.
How about the other one? You have those in small.
The Sam Houston Coliseum, the scene of Houston wrestling. Paul Boesch is here, taping commercials and doing interviews for use between matches. Paul Boesch is at ringside, announcing the matches for a large television audience. For many years, Paul Boesch was a fixture in the ring itself, but that was a few years ago. Today, he is Mr. Promoter, Mr. Announcer, Mr. Just about everything you can think of when you talk about wrestling in Houston.
Jerry and Marty Oates goes up against Doug Vines and our Cruz. And then we have the debut of Leaping Lenny Poffo goes up against Tom Stanton.
His headquarters on Caroline holds what amounts to a wrestling museum, filled with pictures and mementos of some of the biggest names in wrestling.
This is my office, and I'm the favorite character in here, undoubtedly.
There are a lot of pictures of Paul on the wall here, but Paul Boesch is a modest man, proud of his achievements, and grateful, too, for the career that began more than 50 years ago.
It actually began on October the 25th, 1932, and on that night I had my first professional wrestling match in Staten Island, New York. Took the ferry over from Lower Manhattan, got off and carried my bag and walked away like I was going into the future. I didn't realize then that more than 50 years later, I'd still be involved in wrestling. Brooklyn was the beginning. That's where I had my roots, but only until I was about 10 years old. And then I moved to Long Beach, New York. The transition from the streets of Brooklyn to the sandy beaches of Long Beach and the boardwalk, and the fact that I learned to swim at a very early age, and that most of the things that you did were outdoors and winter and summer, made a tremendous impression on me, still do.
Paul Boesch is not terribly large, physically speaking, especially by today's standards, but even in the early 30s, there weren't many wrestlers around his size.
I wasn't even my size when I started out. The first match I had, I weighed 194 pounds. And this, of course, was a little light for that particular era, but people thought that since I was just 20 years old that I would grow out of it and I would gain weight. And they're right. Now I'm trying to stop gaining weight.
Wrestling took Paul to a lot of places around the world: Canada, Australia, New Zealand. It first brought him to Houston in January 1942. He was here for a few months, and shortly after returning to New York, he entered the Army.
I came out of the Army 3 years, 1 month, and 27 days later.
Paul was the most decorated wrestler soldier in the war. He was wounded in action twice. He was awarded the Purple Heart, the Silver Star with Oak Leaf Cluster, the Bronze Star, Combat Infantryman's Badge, French Croix de Guerre. He was offered several chances to become a physical education instructor for the Army in the United States, but he turned them all down. In spite of his injuries, Boesch returned to wrestling after the war, and he returned to Houston in 1947. Then an automobile accident near San Antonio changed the course of his life.
I was injured, and it looked like I might never wrestle again. But during that particular time, while I was hobbling around on crutches and spending my time doing nothing, Morris Siegel found some things for me to do in his office, and he found out that I could use a typewriter, that I could spell, and then in 1948, the radio station KLEE became the station that broadcast wrestling at that time. We're talking about the beginning of 1948. I became the announcer for KLEE. I had a sports program on there. I think we used to call it Roughneck Sports or some such thing. And it came the end of 1948, and KLEE had built a television station. It wasn't much of a station as stations go now. But Mr. Lee had the franchise for Channel 2. So in the first week of 1949, the first sports program, the first remote program for Channel 2 and for Houston was wrestling, and it came from the City Auditorium. We started when the Star Spangled Banner went on. We went through until the last fellow had left the arena and the guy was out there sweeping up the peanut shells.
Paul carries on with Houston Wrestling today on KHTV Channel 39. It has been a long and happy relationship. Large numbers of fans tune in Saturday nights and Sunday mornings, and Paul is almost always on hand to describe the action, unless he and the missus are off to Japan to officiate a wrestling tournament and take in some sumo wrestling, or return to the Philippines where Paul wrestled in 1940. Paul bought the Houston wrestling promotion business after Morris Siegel died in 1966. He has been active in this business and a lot of other things for a long time. After more than a half century, how does he feel about it all? About the people in wrestling?
I have met more fine, down-to-earth people in wrestling than I have met in almost any other profession.
About whether wrestling is more theater than sport.
All sport is theater. All sport has to please a segment of the audience. We have the most obvious showmanship, but the fact is that showmanship permeates every phase of sport.
About his own nickname.
I like the idea of being called a bombshell.
And about all of his work for charity, the Rotary Boys Club and the Center for the Retarded.
You don't do that for any reason other than you realize that it gives you a satisfaction deep inside, and it's important for everybody to feel that sense of helping others.
There is more to Paul Boesch than a drop kick and cauliflower ears. One person at Channel 39 who has worked with Paul for some time says of him, he is a gentleman. What is there left for Paul Boesch?
I would like the privilege of just continuing what I'm doing for a long time.